everybody, I'm Kate Conroy.
And I'm Vinny Savatello.
And this is Other People's Business, which is the podcast from the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, the largest statewide business association in the country. We release a new episode every other Wednesday, so be on the lookout for that. Shout out to New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group. They do home, auto, and workers' comp, so check them out if you need some updated coverage.
Awesome. Just a couple housekeeping matters before we get started. This show is available anywhere you can get a podcast. That's iTunes, Google Play, Amazon's TuneIn. We even put these things up on YouTube if you'd rather watch than listen. But no matter how you're checking out this show, show it some love. Give it that comment. Give it that like. Give it that 5-star review on iTunes. Help us get discovered by more awesome listeners just like you. So with that out of the way, our awesome guest today is Greg Angelillo of Transparent Energy. So Greg, say hi. Let the audience hear your voice.
Hi, Vinny and Kate. Thank you for having me be a part of the show, and excited to be on. So thank you very much.
The pleasure is all ours.
I was just going to say, it's our pleasure.
Thank
All
you.
right, so let's get things going with our icebreaker question. What are you currently binging? And it can be books, movies, television, food, whatever you feel like. And if you think of, go ahead.
Listen, I'm Italian, so as you know, Vinny could attest to, you have a vowel in your last name, you're constantly binging on Italian food, you know, and sorbet, desserts, and that sort of thing. So maybe a little gelato. Yeah, listen, my wife and I have 3 kids, so we don't really get a ton of time to binge watch movies or even TV shows. But oddly enough, I hadn't seen the show in, a decade? But we've started binge watching The Sopranos again because of the Many Saints of Newark release.
Yeah.
And I'm a Rutgers grad, and James Gandolfini, of course, the late great, was a Rutgers grad himself. Actually had a chance to meet him a couple of times. So it's neat to kind of see that and have that connection. So yeah, Sopranos all the way in.
I heard that there's a new spin-off or something coming.
They're talking about it. It's in HBO, I think, has a first look deal with David Chase. Yep.
Yes.
I loved the Many Saints of Newark, and I am this close to pulling the trigger on a rewatch binge of The Sopranos because it totally fired me up. I couldn't believe how good it was.
I've only seen a few episodes here and there, but I keep meaning to do the whole thing. Yeah.
Never? Oh my
Never.
God, it's great.
I mean, a few. Like, I've seen a few. I watched maybe like the first couple, and then I've seen a few of them at sporadic points. Like, you know, if I was somewhere and people were watching it, I sat down and I watched it with them. You know, there were a couple things like that. But yeah, I never did the whole thing.
Yeah, you know, I thought it was neat, Vinny, to your point. Like, there's you can get engaged in it and still sort of understand the storyline.
Yeah.
What I always found to be cool about being from New Jersey are some of the landmarks that they would always show throughout various episodes. And, you know, no matter what season you're in, there's certainly a lot of that. But for me, it tied up, Kate, a lot of the loose ends from the Many Saints of Newark, right? And it kind of goes back to Tony Soprano and James Gandolfini's character, early days of, you know, how he needed to go see Dr. Melfi and Lorraine Bracco's character, and, you know, a lot of the family issues and that sort of thing. I will say this, and I don't want to spoil it for our listeners, but as a standalone mob film, if you will, for lack of a better, you know, genre, I was kind of disappointed with Many Saints of Newark, as opposed to a Goodfellas or a Godfather movie and the like. But having said that, if you're a fan of Sopranos, I think you will be a fan of Many Saints of Newark just by a lot of the sheer symmetry that is tied in throughout the show.
Totally agree. I think Goodfellas might be my favorite mob movie of all time because it's so succinct. It spans, but it doesn't go on and on. But the Many Saints was, I think the thing I loved about it was I've been reading books about Newark because my favorite author is Philip Roth. And so Newark is as a character in a lot of his books, and he talks about the riots a lot. And the Many Saints is the first time I've ever seen the riots depicted the way that they probably actually took place. It was fascinating to look at from a historical perspective. And then just knowing these characters the way that I did from watching The Sopranos for so long, you know, meeting Christopher's father, there were so many pieces of it that were really, really great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, that was a really long sidebar. Vin, what are you binging?
I can't really say I've been binging anything lately. I just watched that Dune movie on HBO Max. You know, it's funny. Like I haven't read the book, and I was never into like the old movie. I haven't seen that either. So this got a lot of hype, so I threw it on, and I didn't dislike it, but I can't really say it grabbed me either. Greg, you mentioned, you know, not having a lot of time to binge with the kids. this was one of those things where I knew it was going to be kind of violent, so I waited until my daughter went to bed and then put it on. And maybe because of that, the sound mixing in this movie, it's one of those things where when they talk, it's at 1 and everything else is at 10.
Right.
So if I have to be there with the remote control throughout the entire movie to go up and down, up and down, up and down, you've lost me. And that's kind of the experience that I had with that one. So
That's incredible.
yeah. How about you, Kate?
Well, I'm binging an oldie but a goodie. Have you guys ever heard of the show Resident Alien?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You both sound really underwhelmed, so I'm nervous about going forward with this.
No, we watched the first episode, and my daughter was in the room at the time, and she's 4, and she saw the guy turn into the alien, and she was terrified. So we just stopped it, and we never went back. So
yeah, I don't blame you. He's a scary looking alien, but after he takes over the body of the the local doctor, it's really a kind of a funny fish out of water story that I enjoyed quite a bit.
It looked like it would be good.
Yeah, there were parts of it that were really funny because he's got this guy's phone, and so somebody will use an expletive, and he will quickly Google what that expletive means and then be horrified at the results of his Google search. It's really funny. Anyway, I think that's the icebreaker.
Sure. So tell us about.
I have to add too. I'd be remiss if I didn't. That because of the love fest that everybody has with DVRs, we do on occasion. We'll make sure that we're staying up to date on America's Funniest Home Videos and also Dancing with the Stars, so that
I didn't even know they still made that show.
They do. It is. It is.
Wow.
And Alfonso, I can't remember his name, but he was in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air along with Will Smith. Carlton, he's the host. And so anyway, yes, exactly. Do the Carlton.
Good for him.
So anyway, needless to say, because of Friday being pizza night and family game night and family fun night in our household, Vin, our kids are 9.5, 6.5, and 2.5. We'll occasionally throw on and binge watch, let's say, America's Funniest Home Videos for a couple of episodes. So if we want to consider that binging, we have a good time with that too in our household.
Okay.
That's awesome. That's a really fun idea. I like it.
Sure. Tell us about Transparent Energy, though.
Yeah, appreciate you asking. We're a large.
That's why we're here.
What's that? While we're here, maybe talk a little business as opposed to. Yeah, we're a large energy procurement firm based in northern New Jersey out of the Fairfield office, actually where I'm sitting right now. And so we procure power for large energy end users and act as a liaison between those folks, whether or not they're developers, manufacturers, light industrial, commercial office space, data centers, hospitals, universities, you name it. If they're a large end user of power, we represent them in the marketplace and act as a liaison between them and third-party energy suppliers that more often than not folks have heard of, even if they turn on the golf network or watch a PGA Tour event, because a lot of the folks are wearing their hats that say Constellation or Direct Energy or NRG, NG. Those are the third-party energy suppliers that we represent in the business.
It sounds like you're a mortgage broker almost. So like if I wanted to buy a house, my mortgage broker would go out and find the best deal for me, and it could be any bank. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, it's not a bad analogy, Kate. You're right, because if you've been through the mortgage process before, the only difference is that we're not taking blood and asking for your right arm. So many of those brokers are doing. We just need a bill copy and maybe your last contract. But no, I mean, I think the difference is that we're very proactive in the market. We're going out 12 to 18 months in advance of contract expiration. When I first got started in this industry about 10 years ago, the number was about every 5 out of 10 large end users was going to a third-party supplier and utilizing retail choice programs. That number today is more like 8.5. So a commercial client of ours is already utilizing our services or the services that we can provide. With the difference being is that we're being really proactive in the market, and Vinny, to really kind of tie up your point of what's Transparent Energy all about. We run a live reverse auction platform for our clients that really helps save you as the client about 7 to 8% over and above any other procurement methodology that's out there in the marketplace today. And that's a real number. It's based off an apples to apples comparison of where you're currently at or the current methodology that you're utilizing to procure power.
What's a reverse auction?
It's a good question. So everyone's familiar with eBay, and
Sure.
you know, the fact that you have a allotted amount of time. Let's just keep it simple for our listeners. Let's say that there's 30 minutes on that eBay auction. That will be essentially a race to the top, right? While the clock ticks down to zero. With a reverse auction, it's different in a sense where the suppliers, for them, it's a race to the bottom. Who can get the lowest price for you during that 30-minute auction period?
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, it's actually the same methodology that the Board of Public Utilities in New Jersey and all of our surrounding states utilizes, except only 5% of the marketplace utilizes a reverse auction to procure power. And the only other point that I'll make is we do have a reverse eBay effect feature within the auction, so that if the clock does tick down below 30 seconds, any one of the suppliers can come in with a low bid, and then that clock automatically resets to 120 seconds and has the suppliers sort of take a deep breath, regather, reestablish themselves, and go have at it again. So it's actually a really fun thing. It may not be a bad thing to show live on a podcast, maybe live to tape one day. It's a pretty cool thing.
Exciting stuff.
And I mean,
not as exciting as it gets on the energy procurement stuff.
Seriously, but 8% for a large user, that's like thousands and thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about, let's say, $1 million spend a year, I mean, that's $80,000. And many of our clients, Kate, Transparent Energy has 3,000 unique clients. So you're talking about something where they're probably not spending $1 million. They might be spending 5 or 10 times that much. So you can see where if you're getting involved in a contract where the price is applicable for you and there's budget certainty and budget predictability, that's going to be pretty meaningful for a large end user for sure.
So you keep saying large. Like, where's the cutoff? Like, who do you represent?
It's a great question. So we have over 3,000 unique clients in our database. Of which the average client probably uses, let's say, about 3 million kilowatt hours a year on the electricity side of things. And then on the gas side of things, 100,000 therms a year. What is that equitable to? Probably an office space that's an office building that's about 65,000 square feet. An industrial or manufacturing client could certainly be more or less, depending on the size. Data centers, that could be a 10,000 square foot data center, right? That's how much power 24/7 they're churning through. But at the end of the day, that's our entry point for auctions. But Vinny, we have a lot of clients that are a lot smaller than that. Not necessarily the mom and pop pizzerias of the world, but certainly those that don't qualify for an auction that would still qualify for what's called a sealed bid auction, where our process doesn't waver. We still go out to as many suppliers as we can. Generally speaking, about 15 or 18 of those suppliers to try to get the lowest rate in the market for the client on that particular day.
Cool.
That's great. Very cool. I feel like I learned so much. I need to take a minute and digest. Why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to play a game. And we're back, and it is now time to play my favorite game, Awful or Awesome. I'm going to name 3 things, and we each have to decide quickly if they're awful or awesome, and be prepared to defend your answers. Ready?
Ready.
All right, so you guys are both Jersey guys. Jersey Shore, the TV show. I have never seen an episode, but I'm still going to go ahead and say awful.
Wow. It's funny. I want to say we did this on an episode a long time ago where we talked about Jersey Shore. I don't remember what my answer was, but when we were talking about maybe bringing this up, I said, you know what? I think I actually would like to talk about it again, because there was like a whole revival show that they did.
Family Vacation.
The Family Vacation. I haven't gotten around to actually watching it yet. I will put out there on the table that I've probably seen every episode of like the other one, like the original run of it. It's a guilty pleasure, whatever, like whatever. But I caught a clip on YouTube from the Family Vacation thing of Angelina's wedding. And they did like like the maid of honor speech. And when I say, as somebody who's interested in communications and public speaking, I would actually recommend watching this to anyone because Dina, Nicole, JWoww, and Snooki gave a masterclass on what not to do when you're handed a microphone, like particularly at a wedding, but even in general. Like,
Yeah. Denise
it was-
sent me the clip, and I watched
Yeah.
it right before we jumped on here, and I just am so glad about my decision to now watch the show because it just underlines exactly what's wrong with the world.
I mean, it was difficult to tell watching that speech whether or not they actually hated the bride. And I think, like, if you are writing a wedding speech or any speech in general, I feel like you should know your audience. You should know like who you're delivering
Yeah.
it to. And they just didn't read the room. And they not only got booed out, you know, like the whole guest crowd was booing them until they just left. One of them stormed out of the wedding. The bride stormed out crying. Snooki quit the show. So if you were thinking maybe it was all just staged for the sake of like whatever, it wasn't even like that. So,
No, I mean,
yeah, I definitely want to catch up on it.
shouldn't ever really say to anybody, "You are the trash to my bag."
Yeah, the lice to
Right.
my hair. There were a lot of them.
Lice
The
to
one
my
that got them
hair.
booed out of the room was when they said you're the dump to our island, which was mocking Staten Island. You know, they call her the Staten Island dump. And
does that?
obviously, reading the room, most of the room were her family from Staten Island, so they took that very personally. You know,
Yeah.
never insult the bride in a wedding speech, and don't go over like 2 or 3 minutes, and don't make it about you. Those are my big tips if you're gonna write a wedding speech.
I mean, I feel
Oh,
like, and anytime I've ever seen somebody try to do like a roast as part of their wedding speech, it's always gone wrong. Every
Yeah.
single time. It's never gone well. So
I
anyway,
think that the bride or the groom can kind of pretend that they're, you know, going along with it, which in her credit, she did.
she did.
Like, for that first like couple of insults there, she kind of laughed along, and then you kind of saw in her face, she was like, "Okay, guys, wrap it up." but you
Not
shouldn't
nice.
put somebody in that position during their wedding day. I don't know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, we just
inside
went.
jokes are a no-no, and
Yeah.
you know, and the other issue that I've had at you know being from a big Italian family and having been to a lot of weddings are you know nowadays folks that they put their speech on their phone.
Oh, I hate that.
Mm.
They constantly have to go back in with the password key or the face recognition, and the phone has to light up again. So it's
Yep.
just a pause that's completely unnatural.
Yep.
And my theory is if this person has asked you to be in their wedding and then deliver a speech, the least you could do is try to memorize that, even if it
Yeah.
is 35 seconds.
I can tell you,
Exactly.
I think that if you can't memorize it, it's too long.
Yes.
Like,
God, that's a good
I was at a
call.
wedding once, and I honestly can't even remember whose wedding it was, but the best man went first, and his speech was 15 minutes, and it was all about like the two of them, like the best man and the groom, and how they were kids together, and then they went to like college together, and all their adventures after college. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with the wedding, but like none of anybody in the audience cared at all. And then the maid of honor got up and gave like what I'm gonna say is the best wedding speech of all time. She was just like, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just love these two tremendously. And I know that all these people do too. So toast to them. And we gave her a standing ovation because it was like after that 15 minutes, it was just like, get on with it.
Yeah. It's
Know the room. Read the room.
read the room. But I think
Wow.
Jersey Shore in particular, getting back to Jersey Shore,
Jersey
it's just okay, so most people in New Jersey that I know have like a love-hate relationship with it. Either they love it just to watch the train wrecky part of it, or they absolutely hate it because of the way it portrays New Jersey people. Like this is not how we want people in other parts of the country and world to think New
Yeah.
Jersey people are. Like it's just not nice. It's not
I mean, the bulk of that cast was from New York anyway. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I got to give it the awful because it is awesome for the train wreck that's about to ensue.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself is just completely awful. And I mentioned to you both that I'm a Jersey guy and spent my summers at the Jersey Shore growing up as a kid, actually in near Spring Lake. And so to me, New Jersey is a wonderful state, right? I mean, you have the you know, Appalachian Mountains and High Point, and the Jersey Shore and Cape May, and everywhere in between. And that is not a true reflection of the Jersey Shore, unfortunately. And
Totally agree.
being that they're all from New York, it gives zero representation to what we're really all about as Jersey people. So yeah, big old awful for me.
All right, so I think all three of us are awful.
Sure.
All right, next
I've
up.
seen it. It's a guilty pleasure, but I'm not going to say it's good television. You know, you shouldn't
Of course.
watch.
Right. Okay, that's fair. All right, so the next one is binge watching television in general. So like not a specific show, but like the ability that Netflix introduced to us to watch a show for 8 hours and go through like 10 seasons of Friends or The Sopranos or something. So the idea of binge watching, I'm going to say awesome. I love it.
I don't know. I mean, it was kind of funny. Like when Netflix first kind of came out, they kind of noticed that this is how people are watching everything on their platform, and they started making shows available in that format. So if there's a season, every episode in that season is available the day it comes out. And you kind of thought that that was the direction things were going to go in from there on out. And now everybody's got a streaming platform, and at least as far as I'm aware, no one else does that. You know, like, so Disney Plus puts them out 1 week at a time. Hulu puts them out 1 week at a time. So I don't know. I kind of feel like
right. HBO puts them out 1 week at a time. You're right.
Yeah. So I think like if the show is there, you know, and I'm behind, then yeah, I'm gonna binge through it and watch them all because I want to see what's next. But I feel like if I'm given that opportunity to go week to week, I think I kind of prefer that. It gives you a chance to kind of like wonder what's coming up next. It gives you kind of an opportunity to talk about it with people without worrying about whether or not you're going to spoil something 2 seasons ahead. Plus, and I'm just going to say this, I'm that guy that doesn't remember anything from anything I watch. Like if it's a TV show that I watched like 6 months ago, I've already forgotten it. And part of that is that like I watched the whole season in one day, and then it's 364 more days until I'm like interacting with that show again at all. So I need that like 2-minute like reminder in the beginning to be like, okay, what was going on with this, you know?
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, I have an ambivalent relationship with this too. It's awesome for the fact that we have a 2.5-year-old at home that loves to binge watch Cocomelon. But I'll give you an example. Vinny was talking about, you know, just 6 months later. Well, my wife and I watched however many seasons there were of Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
And we watched all the episodes. I think there were 84 episodes, and we did it during like the winter before the pandemic. And you got so ingratiated with these characters that we were like putting ourselves in the show and having dreams. And I was like emotionally attached to these characters.
It's like, I bought a motorcycle.
Right. Exactly. And I don't even ride a motorcycle. So to me, that was probably awful because at the same time, I just became so emotionally attached that maybe I started to not really think about the priorities in my life that I should have past 10 p.m., like paying bills maybe. But no, I say that in jest. I think it's cool that you can binge watch, but there's something that harkens back to our childhood years and our formidable years where you would go and wait for TGIF and, you know, all the Friday shows to come on, and it was like an event that happened in your household. So I'm going to give kind of the awfulsome view.
Fair enough. I don't think anybody's ever done that before. Very nice.
Awesome.
Fair.
Plus, it kind of builds up this like crazy amount of hype. Like, all right, so Sons of Anarchy, we're going to take that as an example. I think I watched that one season at a time, but if I was watching, I don't even remember how many seasons of that show there were, but like it's basically Hamlet. And, you know, you kind of understood like where that was going based on the idea that like we know Hamlet. But like towards the end there, they kind of dropped the ball on that tremendously, and they botched the ending, and it was just kind of like, eh. So I watched all that, and then they kind of like failed to stick the landing, and then it's just like you feel like such a waste of like, I don't know, 100 hours of your last week or whatever.
Right,
God.
right.
That's upsetting.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to move on because we could talk about this actually forever, I think, but we have a time
I think
limit.
that's a good podcast topic in and of itself, right? For
Yeah,
maybe the name of the
only
podcast.
you're talking my language.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. All right. So the last one is Central Jersey as a concept. Now, people who are not in New Jersey may not know this, but there is kind of this big existential fight as to whether or not Central Jersey even exists. There's North Jersey and there's South Jersey, and what is Central Jersey then? So I think it's awesome. I totally believe in Central Jersey. I think it's Middlesex, Monmouth, and Mercer counties.
Yeah.
That's how I feel, and I'm willing to fight anybody who says that that's not correct. I'm not really.
I'm going to say Central Jersey is 100% a thing. I grew up in Mercer County.
There you go.
And, you know, like, I think what it is, all right, so if you're from North Jersey, Greg, you could probably, you know, connect with this. Like, you root for the New York teams. And if you're from South Jersey, you root for the Philadelphia teams. But when you're in Central Jersey, kind of all bets are off. You're either like one, the other, both. Maybe you like people out in Denver or, you know, like whatever. But, like, I think that's kind of that culture of the middle of the thing. We don't really have the same identities as like the South Jersey people, but we're not quite North either. It's a different culture altogether.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think Central Jersey is absolutely a thing. I'm a Rutgers grad, so I mentioned that before. I always consider that to be sort of the, you know, the Mason-Dixon line of New Jersey, if you will, that New Brunswick, Piscataway area. And it's funny when it comes to, I was a high school football player. I played football at Rutgers for a year and a half. I had really bad shoulders, so it forced me out of the game, unfortunately. But still, you know, I bleed scarlet every day, despite the ups and downs and how hard it is to be a Rutgers athletic fan in general. But having said that, when it comes to football, interestingly enough, there is no Central Jersey. It's North Jersey football and South Jersey football. But when it comes to nearly everything else, food, teams, you know, that you root for and the like, I think there's a definitive split. There really is a North, Central, and Southern New Jersey. I agree with Kate, what she said about Middlesex, you know, and Monmouth and Mercer. I would almost throw Hunterdon County in there too. So it's, you know, I think Mercer, Middlesex is probably a good starting point for that Central Jersey conversation, though, for sure. Which leads into another conversation. Is it pork roll or is it Taylor ham? Right?
It's not going on my sandwich. That's all I know.
I was going to say the same thing. Growing up, I didn't eat either one. So, like, when people started asking me that, I was like, well, what are they?
If you were to ask me Taylor ham or bacon or sausage, I would say bacon or sausage.
Just bacon.
Right.
Like,
Just bacon. No, actually, on a sandwich roll, I think it would be sausage because it's easier to eat.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know. Bacon is never difficult to eat. You could put bacon on
That's
literally
true.
anything. Like,
That's true.
you could. I'm sure you could figure out a way to like stick pieces of bacon in ice cream, and it would. I'm not saying that would be a good idea. I'm just saying it wouldn't be any harder to eat.
My sister makes like a maple bacon cupcake, and I've never had one, but it sounds amazing, doesn't it?
That does sound amazing.
Well, and bacon is definitely a breakfast, lunch, and dinner meal too. You can have those. And granted, Taylor ham you can have, you know, pretty well. And now you know which side of the equation I'm on. But interestingly enough, before this podcast, Kate and I had a conversation, and I had mentioned to you, Kate, that John Taylor was a state senator from Hamilton, from Vinny's neck of the woods in Mercer County, and yet in all, you know, a lot of the time it's referred to pork roll down in Central and South Jersey as opposed to Taylor ham, but John Taylor's from Hamilton, New Jersey, so go figure. And he was the founder of Taylor ham, so there you go.
I guess the more you know. I want to like put one of those little rainbows up. Let's say that's the game.
Right.
So, Greg, I actually did have a question before. So say I'm a company and I don't know, I'm interested in finding out what's out there for me, what, you know, kinds of deals I could strike in my new reverse auction that's waiting out there for me somewhere. What would be the best time for me to switch? Because I know people are kind of locked into contracts and stuff. How far from the end of my contract should I really be knocking down your door?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So it's such a commodity-based sale, Vinny, that at the end of the day, it's really dependent on what the market's doing, right? You know, right now, natural gas has been this expensive in 13 years, and natural gas is actually the chief commodity that drives and influences electricity rates. So every time that we turn on the lights in our office or at home, doesn't matter if it's residential or commercial. Yes, our focus is on commercial, but when you flick on those lights, that's predicated on how natural gas trades. So there is that commodity trader element to it and the knowledge that we have to impart on our clients. But more often than not, there are no points throughout the year where they call them the shoulder months, where you have to procure power in the months of, let's say, September and October, when you're not using as much heating or cooling demand, or in April and May. It's really based off of when your contract does expire. And typically most brokerage shops will go out maybe 2-3 months in advance before the end of contract expiration. And it pigeonholes the client. It doesn't give them enough time to formulate a risk management strategy and have the ability to go out and really use those data inflection points in the market to see what their appetite for risk is, right? With our process, we're going out, and I appreciate you asking the question because it's an important one. Timing is really of the essence. It's probably about half of what we put into as far as our process. So we're going out 12, 15, sometimes 18 months in advance of contract expiration, not unheard of, even if it's 2 years out from contract expiration, just to allow the client.
I didn't even know people got locked into deals that long.
Yeah, in New Jersey, you can sign anywhere between 1 month or 60 months or anywhere in between. So if you're in the midst of a 5-year contract and you have 2 years left, it's not a bad time to look at things depending on the scenario, because what our process allows for is the ability to walk away, for you to say, you know what, I'm comfortable with my position now. I'm glad we took a look at it, but Greg, hit me up again in 6 months and let's talk about it and discuss things further. So the more time that you have on your side, given that it is a commodity-based sale, the better off ultimately your procurement strategy can be.
All right, let's say somebody wants to go through with it. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, good question. Appreciate it. So we actually hired a new marketing director who takes care of all of our marketing content. So we have webinars that are coming up in Q4 along with Q1 2022. You can find out more about those on our website, transparentedge.com. Also, we're probably worth a good LinkedIn follow on Transparent Energy, just because we post so many different articles from time to time where executive members of our staff are being interviewed for articles that appear on Yahoo Finance or in the Wall Street Journal as recently as this past week. So if you give us a follow on Transparent Energy, that's probably a good place to start. And then my email is simple. It's just Angelilo, Angelillo @transparentedge.com.
Awesome.
Very good. Very cool. Okay, I think that's the show.
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh,
Thank you.
again, it was our
Too much
pleasure.
fun with you guys. If you ever need a third co-host, let me know.
Oh, wow.
Definitely.
Thank you. We definitely will. Yeah, so thank you to our listeners, especially the subscribers. We really appreciate the support. Thank you to New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, the official sponsor of the show. They do home, auto, and workers' comp, so check them out if you need some updated coverage. And finally, thanks to Greg Angelillo of Transparent Energy for joining us today.